"I can fix this," said the lowly Omega. He laughed, then couldn't look away. "Hello everyone. Before we begin today's story, I have a small favor to ask. Please hit subscribe and turn on the notification bell so you never miss our channel's new videos. It's quick, free, and the best way to support us in bringing you more dramatic stories. Your support means the world to us. Where are you watching from? Drop your city or country in the comments below. Thank you very much. Now, let's dive into today's tale. Luna was just an ordinary Omega, or so everyone thought. In a world dominated by alpha strength, Luna's place was always at the bottom. Her pack treated her like she was weak, unimportant, even though she possessed a gift that no one fully understood. Luna's healing abilities had always been a source of fascination for some, and mockery for others. They called her the Broken Omega, someone whose worth was only tied to her healing touch, someone who would never amount to more than a lowly servant in a world ruled by alphas. But Luna wasn't going to let their words break her. She couldn't, because deep down, she knew there was more to her than they realized. One fateful day, while gathering herbs deep in the forest, Luna stumbled across a wounded man, a giant of a man, his body battered and bloodied. His dark, tangled hair and the powerful aura surrounding him were unmistakable. He was an alpha, but not just any alpha. Luna didn't know it yet, but this man, lying helpless in the woods, was none other than the Alpha King, Zane, in disguise. He had been cursed, his once mighty wolf now a mere shadow of its former self, and now he was at the mercy of fate. Luna, with her heart full of compassion, couldn't leave him there to die. Her instincts kicked in. She knelt beside him, her hands trembling as she pressed them gently against his wounds. "I can fix this," she whispered softly to herself, not fully aware of the power she was about to unleash. She didn't know that her healing touch would save his life. As her hands glowed with a soft, golden light, the Alpha's breath steadied, and the bleeding slowed. But just as he began to stir, he let out a low chuckle, despite the pain. Luna pulled her hands back in surprise. He laughed, but that laugh wasn't one of mockery. It was a laugh filled with disbelief. He had just been saved by an Omega, someone who was supposed to be weak, insignificant. The irony wasn't lost on him. But as he looked at Luna, something shifted in his gaze. He couldn't look away. She had done the impossible. He had been saved by someone everyone had written off. Zane, the Alpha King, the most feared ruler in the land, was now indebted to the very person society had cast aside. The realization hit him hard. Luna, the lowly Omega, had done what no one else could. Her kindness and strength were undeniable, and as he met her gaze, something deep inside him stirred. He didn't know what it was, but it was something he couldn't ignore. And so, Zane knew that his life had changed forever. Not just because he was healed, but because of Luna, the lowly Omega, the one who had fixed him. As Luna helped Zane, the Alpha King, to his feet, she couldn't shake the feeling that something had shifted between them. The cold wind of the forest whispered through the trees, carrying with it a strange, almost magical energy. Zane, who had once been so cold and distant, now seemed different. His silver eyes met hers, and for a moment, there was an undeniable connection. She had healed him, but it felt like he was the one who was being healed in a deeper way, one that she couldn't understand. Luna, however, still felt like an outsider, a lowly Omega who had no place in a world of powerful alphas. Yet, standing there, with the Alpha King looking at her with an intensity she had never seen before, Luna couldn't help but feel something stir within her. She tried to push the feeling down, but it was there, lingering, like a spark ready to ignite. Zane cleared his throat, breaking the silence. "I owe you more than just my life, Luna," he said, his voice gruff but sincere. "You've done something no one else could." Luna felt a heat rise to her cheeks, but she said nothing. She didn't know how to respond. She was just a healer, a servant to those who needed her. But Zane's gaze was unwavering, and it made her feel like she mattered. It made her feel like she could be more than just a broken Omega. "I don't know how to thank you," Zane continued, his tone softening. "But I swear, I will not forget what you have done for me." Luna swallowed, trying to steady her breathing. She hadn't expected this. She hadn't expected Zane, the Alpha King, to look at her with such respect. "I only did what I could," she replied, her voice barely above a whisper. "It's what I do." Zane nodded, but there was a glint in his eyes that Luna couldn't ignore. He was studying her, as if trying to figure out something he couldn't quite grasp. "What's your story, Luna?" he asked after a pause. "What brought you here, to this forest, all alone?" Luna hesitated. She had never shared her past with anyone, not really. She had always kept her story to herself, hidden away in the corners of her heart. But something about Zane made her want to open up, to let him see the person she truly was, not just the healer everyone thought she was. "I was cast out," she said finally, her voice low. "My pack. They didn't see me as worthy. They treated me like I was a burden. I came here to find peace, to be alone." Zane's expression softened. "I know what it feels like to be cast aside," he said quietly. "I've been there too." Luna looked up at him, surprised. She had never imagined that someone like Zane, an alpha king with all his power, could ever feel like an outcast. "You?" she asked. Zane nodded, his eyes darkening with the weight of his past. "I wasn't always the alpha king. I was once just a soldier, like many others. But my rise to power wasn't easy. I've lost people, betrayed by those I trusted, and even cursed by the very thing that makes me strong." Luna's heart went out to him. She could see the pain in his eyes, the same kind of pain she had felt in her own heart for so long. She reached out, touching his arm gently, offering a silent comfort. Zane seemed taken aback by her touch, but he didn't pull away. Instead, he placed his hand over hers, the warmth of his skin a stark contrast to the cold of the night. For a moment, they stood there, connected in a way that neither of them had ever experienced before. It was as if the world around them had faded away, leaving only the two of them in that quiet, intimate moment. Finally, Zane spoke, his voice barely audible. "You're not alone anymore, Luna." The words sent a shiver down her spine. She looked up at him, unsure of what he meant. "What do you mean?" she asked, her voice shaky. Zane's gaze was intense, filled with a determination she hadn't seen before. "I'm not going to let you be alone anymore. I'm going to protect you, Luna. You've done too much for me, and now, it's my turn to do something for you." Luna's breath caught in her throat. She had never expected such a promise from him, especially not from someone as powerful as Zane. "But I'm just an Omega," she protested, her voice cracking. "I'm nothing. I don't deserve your protection." Zane's grip on her hand tightened, his eyes unwavering. "You are more than enough, Luna. Don't ever doubt that." Luna didn't know what to say. She was overwhelmed, not just by his words, but by the emotions that were flooding her heart. She had spent so long believing she was worthless, believing she would never find a place in this world. But here, with Zane, she was beginning to feel something she had never felt before: hope. A hope that maybe, just maybe, she could be more than the broken Omega everyone had always seen her as. As the night stretched on, Luna and Zane stood there, their hands still intertwined, the future uncertain but filled with the promise of something more, something neither of them had expected. As Luna and Zane stood in the quiet of the forest, the weight of the moment seemed to settle around them. Luna could still feel the warmth of his hand on hers, the promise of protection he had just made still lingering in the air. Her heart was pounding in her chest, her mind racing with thoughts and emotions she could barely process. She had never imagined she would be here, standing with the Alpha King, someone so powerful, someone so untouchable, and yet, here she was, his equal in this moment. Zane seemed to sense her hesitation, his grip on her hand tightening ever so slightly, grounding her, reminding her that she was not alone. "You're not broken, Luna," he said quietly, his voice soft but firm. "I've seen what you can do. You've got strength inside of you, more than you realize. It's not about being strong in the way the world expects. It's about being strong in your own way, the way you heal, the way you care." Luna felt a lump form in her throat. She had spent so many years feeling like she wasn't enough, like she would never be more than just the healer, the Omega who was only good for mending wounds and nothing else. She had never believed in her own worth, always letting others define her value. But Zane's words hit her like a thunderclap, shaking her to her core. She looked up at him, meeting his silver eyes, and for the first time, she saw not just the Alpha King, but a man who understood her, who saw her for who she truly was. "But I'm just an Omega," she said, her voice barely above a whisper, as if saying it aloud would make the reality of it all somehow easier to accept. "No," Zane interrupted gently, his eyes never leaving hers. You are Luna, my Luna, and no one is ever going to make you feel small again. Not while I'm around. His words felt like a balm to her soul, soothing the wounds she had carried for so long, the wounds that came from being underestimated and dismissed. She had always been told she was nothing, but Zane's words made her believe that maybe, just maybe, she was something more. A shiver ran through her as the full weight of his declaration settled on her. He was offering her more than protection. He was offering her a place by his side, a partnership she had never dared to dream of. Zane, she started, her voice trembling with emotion. I don't know if I can believe that. I've spent my whole life being told that I'm not enough. Zane's expression softened, and he stepped closer to her, his presence filling the space between them. He lifted his hand, gently cupping her face, his thumb brushing away a stray tear that had fallen down her cheek. Luna, you are everything. You've always been everything. It's time for you to see that. You're not broken, you're not weak. You are strong, and you have the power to change everything. Luna felt the intensity of his gaze, and for the first time, she allowed herself to believe him. She didn't know how or when, but she knew that her life was about to change in ways she had never imagined. The world she had known, the world where she had always been overlooked, was slipping away. There was something new here, something brighter, and it was because of Zane, because he saw her, truly saw her. As they stood together in the forest, the night beginning to settle around them, Luna realized that this was just the beginning. She didn't know what the future would hold, but she knew that she wasn't alone anymore. Zane had promised to protect her, but in that moment, she realized that they were both protecting something far more important, each other. And as the wind blew softly through the trees, Luna allowed herself to feel something she hadn't felt in a long time. Hope. The kind of hope that made her believe that maybe, just maybe, she had a future that was worth fighting for. A future where she was no longer the broken Omega, but the mate of an Alpha King. The woman who could heal not just the body, but the soul, and perhaps, in the process, heal herself. As days passed, Luna and Zane spent more time together, and with each passing moment, their bond grew stronger. Luna was no longer the Omega who was shunned by her pack, and Zane was no longer the cold, distant Alpha King that everyone feared. They had become something more, something that neither of them had expected. Luna had always been told that she was weak, that her only value was in her ability to heal others, but Zane saw something in her that no one else had ever seen. He saw her strength, her heart, her ability to make a difference, and he began to wonder if he had underestimated her all along. One evening, as they sat together by a fire, Luna looked up at Zane, the flames casting shadows across his features. Zane, she said quietly, her voice tinged with uncertainty. What happens now? I don't know where I belong in all of this. Zane turned to her, his silver eyes softening as he reached out, taking her hand in his. You belong with me, Luna, he said, his voice steady and sure. You always have. Luna's heart fluttered in her chest at his words. She had never felt more seen, more valued than she did in that moment. She had always thought that she was destined to live in the shadows, never able to rise above her station. But Zane had given her a place, a purpose, and a future. She looked down at their intertwined hands, the warmth of his touch grounding her in a way that nothing else ever had. But what about everything else? Luna asked, her mind racing with thoughts of the world outside their secluded little camp. What about your kingdom, your people? You are the Alpha King, and I'm just an Omega. Zane's expression grew serious, his gaze never leaving hers. Luna, I have been ruling this kingdom for years, and I have faced many challenges. But none of them compare to the challenge of finding someone who truly understands me, someone who sees me for who I am, not just the crown I wear. You are not just an Omega, Luna. You are my mate, my equal, and together, we will face whatever comes our way. Luna's breath caught in her throat. She had never heard Zane speak this way, so open, so vulnerable. It was as if the walls he had built around himself had crumbled in front of her, and he was finally allowing her to see the man behind the title. But I don't know if I can be what you need, Luna said, her voice filled with doubt. I've never been a queen, never even been part of a pack. How can I stand by your side when I've never been trained for this? Zane smiled gently, his hand cupping her face, his thumb brushing her cheek. Luna, you don't have to be anyone other than who you are. That is all I need. We will face this together, and I will guide you, as you have guided me. Luna felt a weight lift off her shoulders, as if the heavy expectations she had carried all her life were finally being put down. She had always thought that to be with someone like Zane, she had to be more, do more, but now she realized that he didn't need her to change. He just needed her to be herself, and that was enough. The next day, Zane and Luna returned to his kingdom, where they were greeted by a crowd of loyal subjects. The people had always looked up to Zane, but now, as he stood beside Luna, the crowd's reaction was different. They saw not just their king, but a man who had found his mate, his partner, and they couldn't help but respect that bond. As they walked through the streets of the kingdom, Luna felt a sense of belonging she had never known before. She was no longer just the lowly Omega. She was the Alpha King's mate, and with that came a power she had never imagined. But it wasn't the power of a crown or a title that made her feel strong. It was the power of love, of partnership, of being seen for who she truly was. As they reached the grand hall of the castle, Zane turned to Luna, his expression serious. "This is only the beginning, Luna," he said, his voice filled with determination. "We will face challenges ahead, but together, we can overcome anything." Luna nodded, a newfound confidence settling within her. She wasn't just the Omega anymore. She was Luna, the Alpha King's mate, and nothing would ever be the same again. With Zane by her side, she knew that anything was possible, and for the first time in her life, she believed it. As Luna stood by Zane's side in the grand hall of the castle, she felt the weight of the world pressing on her shoulders. The people of the kingdom were watching, their eyes filled with awe and curiosity as they looked at the pair of them. Luna had never imagined that one day she would be standing here, next to the Alpha King, her mate, in a place so full of power and grandeur. The castle was magnificent, with its towering walls and intricate designs, but it was the people's gaze that made her feel like she was part of something far greater than herself. Zane stood tall, his presence commanding, but when his gaze fell on her, it softened, as if the world around them didn't matter. "Luna," Zane whispered, his voice steady, yet full of emotion, "you are not just by my side for show. You are my queen, and this is your home now, as much as it is mine." His words sent a rush of warmth through her chest. She had never felt more seen, more understood, than in that moment. For so long, Luna had felt like an outsider, like she didn't belong in a world that valued strength and power over everything else. But now, with Zane's declaration, she realized that she had a place in this world, a place where she mattered. The sounds of the bustling court seemed to fade as Zane led her through the hall, his hand resting lightly on her back, guiding her forward. The whispers of the court were still there, of course. People were always curious about a new queen, especially one who had once been an Omega, someone who had been cast aside by her own pack. But Luna didn't care about the whispers anymore. She didn't care about the doubts or the judgments. All that mattered was Zane and the bond they shared, the promise they had made to each other. As they reached the throne at the far end of the hall, Zane turned to face her, his silver eyes locking with hers. "Luna, this is your throne as much as it is mine," he said softly, his voice filled with conviction. "You are not here just because of your healing powers or because of the title of queen. You are here because you are my mate, my partner in everything, and I will not rule this kingdom without you by my side." Luna felt her heart swell at his words. For so long, she had believed she was nothing more than an afterthought, a healer with no real power, no real purpose. But now, Zane had given her that purpose, and she could feel the weight of the responsibility in her chest. "I will stand by you, Zane," she said, her voice filled with quiet strength. "I will stand by you, not because I have to, but because I choose to. Because we are in this together, and I will not let anything come between us." Zane smiled, a rare, genuine smile that lit up his face and made Luna's heart flutter. He took her hand in his grip firm, and together, they sat on the throne, side by side, as the kingdom watched in silence. The court was still, as if waiting for something, and Luna knew that this moment would mark the beginning of a new chapter, not just for her, but for Zane and for the entire kingdom. She wasn't just an Omega anymore. She was the queen, the mate of the Alpha King, and together, they would lead the kingdom into a new era. But the road ahead wouldn't be easy. There were always challenges, always threats to their rule, and Luna knew that she would have to prove herself, not just to the kingdom, but to herself as well. She had to believe in her own strength, the strength that Zane had always seen in her, even when she couldn't see it in herself. As Zane's hand rested on hers, she felt a sense of peace settle within her. She wasn't alone anymore. She had Zane, and with him, she could face whatever challenges lay ahead. Together, they would be unstoppable. The kingdom, once ruled by fear and power, would now be led by love and unity, and Luna knew that she had a role to play in making that vision a reality. For the first time in her life, Luna felt like she truly belonged. She had found her place, not just in the kingdom, but in Zane's heart. And that was all she needed. With Zane by her side, there was nothing she couldn't overcome, nothing they couldn't face together. As the days passed, Luna and Zane grew even closer, their bond strengthening with each passing moment. The kingdom had started to accept Luna, the once dismissed Omega who had now become the Alpha King's mate. But the whispers still lingered in the shadows, doubts about her ability to lead, to be the queen that the people needed. Luna could feel the weight of their eyes on her every time she entered a room, every time she stood by Zane's side. She wasn't afraid of the whispers anymore. She had learned to ignore them, to focus on what truly mattered, her role by Zane's side and the future they would create together. One evening, as Luna sat by the window in their chambers, looking out at the sprawling kingdom below, Zane walked in, his presence commanding yet gentle. "You're still awake," he said, his voice soft as he approached her. Luna turned to look at him, offering a small smile. "I couldn't sleep," she replied, her gaze drifting back to the night sky. "There's so much on my mind." Zane sat down next to her, his arm brushing against hers. "What's troubling you, Luna?" he asked, his voice filled with concern. Luna hesitated for a moment, the words weighing heavily on her chest. "I don't know if I'm ready for this," she admitted, her voice barely above a whisper. "I've never been a queen, Zane. I don't know how to lead these people. I don't even know if they'll ever fully accept me." Zane placed a reassuring hand on hers, his grip firm yet gentle. "You are more than ready," he said with absolute certainty. "I've seen the strength in you, Luna. You've already proven it. You healed me. You stood by my side when everyone else doubted you. You've been doing it all along, even when you didn't realize it." Luna felt a wave of warmth at his words. Zane's belief in her, his unwavering support, made her feel like she could conquer anything. But even with his words of encouragement, a part of her still doubted. "But what if I fail?" she asked, her voice tinged with fear. "What if I'm not enough?" Zane turned to face her, his eyes locking with hers. "You don't have to be perfect, Luna," he said gently. "You just have to be you. You are my partner, my equal, and I trust you with everything. We will face every challenge together." Luna took a deep breath, her heart swelling with a mixture of gratitude and fear. "I don't want to let you down," she said, her voice cracking slightly. "You won't," Zane replied, his tone filled with warmth and assurance. "You never have." The words, simple yet powerful, echoed in Luna's mind long after Zane had left the room. She had spent so much of her life doubting herself, believing that she was too weak, too broken, to be someone important. But with Zane's unwavering support, she began to see herself in a different light. She wasn't just the Omega who had been cast aside. She was Luna, the queen, and she had a purpose. Over the next few days, Luna threw herself into her new responsibilities. She worked alongside Zane, attending council meetings, meeting with the people, and learning the intricacies of ruling the kingdom. It wasn't easy, and at times, it felt overwhelming. But every time she faltered, Zane was there, offering her guidance and support, reminding her that she wasn't alone. Slowly but surely, Luna began to gain confidence in her role. She wasn't perfect, and she knew she would never be. But she was learning, growing, and becoming the queen she had always feared she couldn't be. One evening, as Luna sat in the throne room, surrounded by advisors and courtiers, a messenger arrived with urgent news. "My queen," the messenger said, bowing before her. "The neighboring kingdom has sent a demand. They request an audience with you and the Alpha King." Luna's heart skipped a beat. She had heard whispers of tensions rising between their kingdom and the neighboring one, but she hadn't expected it to escalate so quickly. "What is the nature of their request?" Zane asked, his voice cold as he stood by Luna's side. They wish to negotiate a treaty, the messenger replied. But they also demand that Luna be present. They wish to see if she is truly fit to be your queen. Luna's stomach twisted at the words. The neighboring kingdom's rulers were known for their ruthlessness, and Luna knew this meeting could be a test not just of her abilities, but of her worth. She looked at Zane, fear flashing in her eyes. I don't know if I'm ready for this, she admitted, her voice barely above a whisper. Zane turned to her, his silver eyes unwavering. You are ready, Luna, he said softly, but with absolute conviction. I believe in you, and so will they. We will face this together, as we always have. Luna nodded, her heart pounding in her chest. This was the moment she had feared, the moment when she would have to prove her worth not just to the kingdom, but to herself. But with Zane by her side, she felt a surge of courage. She wasn't alone anymore. And she wasn't just an Omega. She was Luna, and she had everything she needed to succeed. As Luna prepared herself for the meeting with the neighboring kingdom, her mind raced with doubts and fears. This was more than just a diplomatic encounter. It was a test of everything she had worked so hard for. She had proven herself capable of ruling by Zane's side. But now, the entire kingdom and its future rested on her shoulders. Standing in front of the large mirror in her chambers, Luna adjusted the deep crimson gown that Zane had chosen for her. It was beautiful, intricate, and it symbolized her new role, but as she stared at her reflection, she didn't feel powerful. She felt small, uncertain, like the Omega who had once been cast aside. Her fingers trembled as she ran them over the delicate fabric, feeling the weight of the moment press down on her. It wasn't just the gown, it was the crown of responsibility that had been placed on her head. She wasn't just an Omega anymore. She was the queen, the partner of the Alpha King, and she had to prove she was worthy of the position. Just as she was about to turn away, the door to her chambers opened, and Zane entered. His presence filled the room immediately, his commanding stature and intense gaze making Luna's heart skip a beat. You look beautiful, Luna, he said, his voice soft, yet filled with admiration. More than I ever imagined. Luna met his gaze, her eyes searching his face for the strength she needed. I don't know if I can do this, she admitted, her voice cracking. I don't know if I'm ready to face them, to prove I belong here. Zane stepped closer to her, his hand reaching out to gently touch her cheek. His fingers were warm, grounding her in the moment. You are ready, he said firmly. I've seen the way you lead, the way you've stood by my side. The people will see your strength, Luna. They will see the queen you are, not just the Omega you once were. His words sank deep into her heart, giving her the courage she had been searching for. She had always doubted herself, but Zane had always believed in her, and that belief gave her a sense of purpose, a sense of power that she had never known before. Thank you, Zane, she whispered, her voice steadying. I won't let you down. Zane smiled, his eyes filled with pride. I know you won't. Together, we will face this as we always have, side by side. With that, Luna felt a calmness wash over her. She wasn't alone in this. She never would be. As they walked toward the throne room, Luna's heart pounded in her chest, but each step felt more purposeful. She was not the same woman who had first arrived in the kingdom, unsure of her place. She had grown stronger, more confident, and she had Zane by her side. They entered the throne room, and Luna could feel the eyes of the court upon her. The whispers of the courtiers echoed in the vast space, but Luna kept her gaze forward, her posture straight. She could do this. Zane took his seat on the throne first, and Luna joined him, sitting beside him, her back straight, her hands resting lightly in her lap. The room fell silent as the messenger from the neighboring kingdom stepped forward, a formal scroll in his hand. Your Majesties, he said, bowing deeply. I bring a message from King Thaler of the Eastern Kingdom. He requests an audience with you both to discuss a matter of great importance. Luna's heart skipped a beat at the mention of King Thaler. He was known for his cunning and ambition, and Luna had heard rumors that he had his own designs on the throne. She could feel Zane tense beside her, his presence unwavering. What is the nature of this matter? Zane asked, his voice commanding yet calm. The messenger hesitated, then unrolled the scroll. King Thaler wishes to propose an alliance through marriage, he said, his eyes flicking nervously between Luna and Zane. He believes that by uniting our two kingdoms, we can secure peace and prosperity for both. Luna's breath caught in her throat, and she felt Zane's hand tighten around hers. An alliance through marriage was not unheard of, but the implications of this offer were clear. King Thaler was proposing a marriage between Luna and one of his sons, a political move to secure his power. Luna could see it in his eyes, the desire to gain control, to use her as a pawn in his game. Zane's voice broke through her thoughts, steady and strong. "I reject this proposal," he said without hesitation. "Luna is my mate, and no one will ever come between us. Our kingdom is not for sale." The room was silent for a moment, but Luna could see the tension in the courtiers' faces. They were waiting for her response, but Luna knew what she had to do. This was her kingdom now, as much as it was Zane's, and she would not be used as a bargaining chip. She turned to face the messenger, her voice firm. "Tell King Thaler that we do not seek alliances through marriage," she said, her words carrying the weight of her newfound strength. "We seek peace and prosperity on our own terms, not through coercion or manipulation." The messenger bowed again, clearly surprised by her confidence, before retreating from the room. As the door closed behind him, the tension in the room lifted, and Luna felt a surge of pride. She had spoken for herself, for her kingdom, and for her future. Zane turned to her, his expression filled with admiration. "You were perfect," he said, his voice full of pride. Luna smiled, feeling a sense of relief wash over her. She had faced the challenge, and together, they had overcome it. She was not just an Omega anymore. She was Luna, the queen, and she was ready to lead. The days that followed the rejection of King Thaler's proposal were filled with tension, but also with a newfound sense of unity and strength. Luna and Zane's decision to stand firm had not only solidified their bond, but also sent a powerful message to their people and to their enemies. Their kingdom, once frail and fractured, now stood strong and unyielding. The whispers of the courtiers had subsided, replaced by murmurs of respect. Luna had proven herself, not only as Zane's mate, but as a ruler in her own right. Someone who could make decisions for the future of their people. The atmosphere in the castle had changed. No longer did Luna feel like the outsider, the lowly Omega who had to constantly prove her worth. She was the queen, the Alpha King's equal, and together, they were building a future. One evening, as Luna sat in the royal gardens, reflecting on everything that had transpired, she felt a sense of peace she hadn't known before. The weight of her responsibilities still pressed on her, but it no longer felt overwhelming. With Zane by her side, she had learned that she didn't need to carry the weight alone. As she gazed out at the setting sun, Zane approached, his presence as commanding as ever, but there was something softer in his gaze, something that made her heart flutter. "You look at peace," he said, his voice gentle as he sat down beside her. Luna smiled, turning to him. "I am," she said, her voice steady. "I found my place, Zane. Not just by your side, but here, with our people. I've never felt more at home." Zane reached for her hand, holding it tightly. In his, "You have always been home, Luna," he said, his voice low and full of emotion. "From the moment we met, I knew you were meant to be by my side." Luna's heart swelled with affection as she looked into his eyes, the depth of their connection more than words could describe. She had never imagined this life for herself, but now that she had it, she couldn't picture a future without him. Their love had transcended everything, the doubts, the fears, the challenges. Together, they had overcome so much, and together, they would face whatever came next. "I still wonder what our future holds," Luna said softly, her voice thoughtful. "There are so many challenges ahead. What if we're not ready?" Zane squeezed her hand, his expression resolute. "We will be," he said confidently. "We have each other, and that's all we need. Whatever the future holds, we will face it together, as partners, as equals. You are my queen, Luna, and nothing will ever change that." His words, strong and unwavering, filled Luna with a sense of purpose. For so long, she had feared what might happen if she didn't measure up, if she couldn't fulfill the role that had been thrust upon her. But now, with Zane's constant support, she realized that she didn't have to be perfect. She just had to be herself. As the evening wore on, they sat together in the garden, the cool night air enveloping them as they watched the stars begin to twinkle in the sky. It was a quiet moment, but for Luna, it was everything. She wasn't just the healer she had once been. She wasn't just the Omega who had been cast aside. She was Luna, the queen, the Alpha King's mate, and the ruler of her own destiny. And for the first time in her life, she felt ready to embrace whatever the future had in store. The kingdom would face trials, of course. There would always be threats to their rule, challenges to their authority, but Luna no longer feared them. She was not the weak Omega anymore. She was strong, capable, and with Zane at her side, she knew they could overcome anything. "I'm not afraid anymore," Luna said softly, her voice filled with conviction. Zane turned to her, his silver eyes sparkling with pride. "You never were," he replied, his smile warmed, full of love. "You've always had the strength inside you, Luna. Now you just see it for yourself." Luna smiled back, her heart full. She knew he was right. She had always had the strength to be more than what others had seen in her. And now, with Zane, she had the strength to build a future for their people, for their kingdom, and for their love. As they sat together, watching the stars, Luna knew that no matter what came next, they would face it together. She was ready to lead, ready to rule, and ready to love. With Zane by her side, there was nothing they couldn't accomplish. As the weeks went by, the kingdom began to flourish under the leadership of Zane and Luna. Their bond had only grown stronger, and together, they brought a new era of peace and prosperity to the realm. The people, once skeptical of Luna's role as queen, now revered her. She had proven herself time and time again, showing them that strength comes in many forms. She was not just the Alpha King's mate. She was a ruler in her own right, a woman who could lead with compassion and wisdom. Luna's heart swelled with pride as she stood in the castle courtyard, watching the people celebrate their harvest festival. It was a time of joy, a time for the kingdom to come together and share in the abundance they had earned. Zane stood beside her, his presence as strong as ever, but there was a softness in his gaze whenever he looked at her, a look that told her she was everything he had ever wanted. "You did it, Luna," Zane said, his voice low, full of admiration. "You've made them see you for who you truly are." Luna smiled, her heart full. "No, Zane," she replied, "we did it. We built this together." Zane's silver eyes locked with hers, and for a moment, the rest of the world faded away. "You've become the queen I always knew you were," he said, his voice filled with pride. "And I couldn't be prouder." Luna's eyes filled with tears, but they were not tears of sorrow. They were tears of joy, of relief. She had spent so much of her life doubting herself, believing she would never be enough. But now, standing with Zane by her side, she realized that she was exactly where she was meant to be. Together, they had faced every challenge, every obstacle, and they had come out stronger. The people of the kingdom had embraced her as their queen, and she had earned their respect. But more importantly, she had earned her own respect. As the festival continued, Luna and Zane walked through the crowds, exchanging smiles and greetings with their people. Luna could feel the weight of her crown, but it was no longer heavy. It was a symbol of everything she had overcome, everything she had achieved. She had once been the broken Omega, the outsider, but now, she was the queen, and she had earned her place in this world. That night, as the stars filled the sky, Zane and Luna stood on the balcony of the castle, looking out over the kingdom they had built. The air was cool, but Luna felt warm, safe in Zane's arms. "I can't imagine a future without you," Zane said, his voice full of emotion. Luna turned to face him, her heart pounding in her chest. "I don't want to imagine a future without you either," she whispered. Zane smiled, his eyes filled with love. "Then we'll face whatever comes next together," he said, his voice steady, filled with conviction. "As we always have." Luna nodded, her heart soaring with the certainty that she had found her home, her purpose, and her love. Together, they had overcome so much. Together, they had built a future. And together, they would face whatever challenges lay ahead. As the night stretched on, Luna realized that she had finally found what she had been searching for her entire life: acceptance, love, and the strength to lead. With Zane by her side, she knew there was nothing they couldn't accomplish. The kingdom was theirs, and their future was bright. The journey that had begun with doubt and fear had led them here, to a place of hope and possibility. And as Luna gazed out at the kingdom, she knew that this was only the beginning of their story. Together, they would rule with wisdom, strength, and love. No matter what came next, they would face it side by side, as partners, as equals, and as the rulers of a united kingdom.